sexy.
Cave exploring, also known as spelunking, is a claustrophobic adrenaline-filled pastime, not meant for the faint of heart. Deep diving into the dark and tight-filled spaces is another way for these thrill-seekers to get closer to Mother Nature with the tightness and dark eerie silence wrapped around you. But sadly, with dangerous hobbies, there's always a chance of no returning, or even worse, the looming feeling of death creeping over you. Professional or novice, one small mistake might just be your end. November 24th, 2009, a man named John Edward Jones was visiting his family for Thanksgiving in Stansbury Park, Utah. Father frequently took him and his brother, Josh, on cave expeditions in Utah when they were kids. The brothers learned to love the underground depths and their dark beauty. Unfortunately, John's first expedition since returning home would be venturing into Nutty Putty Cave, southwest of Utah Lake and about 55 miles from Salt Lake City, would be his last. John Edward Jones entered Nutty Putty Cave at around 8 p.m. local time on the evening of November 4th, 2009, a few days before Thanksgiving. John, 26 at the time, and his younger brother Josh, 23, along with their 9 other friends and family members, decided to explore Nutty Putty Cave as a way to connect with each other ahead of the holiday. At age 26, John was living a picture-perfect life. He was married, he had a 1-year-old daughter, and was attending medical school in Virginia. He had come back home to Utah to spend some relaxing holiday time with his family. Sadly, things did not go according to plan. It had been years since John was in any cave, and at 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, he wasn't the little kid he used to be. About an hour into caving expedition, John decided to find the Nutty Putty Cave formation known as the Birth Canal, a tight passage that spelunkers must crawl through carefully if they dare. He found what he thought was the Birth Canal and inched his way into a narrow passage, head first, moving forward using his hips, stomach, and fingers. But within minutes, he realized he made a grave mistake. John knew he was now just about to be stuck and had no room to turn around. He didn't even have room to wiggle back out. The way he'd come in, he had to press forward. He tried exhaling the air in his chest so that he could fit through the space that was barely 10 inches across and 18 inches high, about the size of an opening of a clothes dryer. But when John inhaled again and his chest puffed back out, he got stuck for good, helpless, in the dark, with walls squeezing him tight, fear of what's to come next. John's brother Josh was the first to find him. Josh tried to pull at his brother's calves to no avail, but then John slid down in the passage even further, becoming trapped, worse than before. John's arms were now pinned beneath his chest, and he couldn't move at all. All John and Josh, both devout Mormons, could do at this point was pray. Josh scrambled towards the exit of the cave to get help, but even once help came, John was still trapped, 400 feet into the cave and 100 feet below the Earth's surface. Getting people, equipment, and supplies down that far took an hour, which with the clock ticking down, was literally time being taken away from his remaining hours. For comfort, Josh was singing religious songs and talking to John about his future to keep the morale high. The first rescuer to reach John was a woman named Susie Motola, who arrived at 12:30 a.m. on November 25th, 2009. At that point, John had been trapped down there for 3.5 hours. Susie introduced herself to John, even though all she could see of him was a pair of navy black running shoes. "Susie, thanks for coming," John said, "but I really want to get out of here." Over the next 24 hours, more than 100 rescuer personnel worked feverishly to free John Edward Jones from the depths of Nutty Putty Cave. With very minimal options, the best plan they had was to use a system of pulleys, and ropes to try and free John from his zero wiggle room tight spot. One of the rescuers on scene explained the difficulties of facing anyone. Even experienced spelunkers who wouldn't a Nutty Putty cave would refuse and stay away from dangerously narrow tight passages, such as the birth canal. Even at the entrance of Nutty Putty Cave, there were warning signs that had been placed. Back in 2004, 2 Boy Scouts had nearly lost their lives in separate incidents in the same area of Nutty Putty Cave where John had become trapped. 2 Boy Scouts had become trapped within a week of each other. In one of the cases, rescue crews took 14 hours to free a 16-year-old Boy Scout who weighed 140 pounds and was about 5'7" tall, making him much smaller than John, using a complex series of pulleys. Officials closed Nutty Putty Cave in 2004, soon after the incidents with the Boy Scouts. The cave had only been reportedly reopened for 6 months in 2009, when John and his family entered. And now, with John trapped inside the cave, time was frantically running out. The downward angle at which John was trapped was putting great stress on his body, because such a position requires the heart to work incredibly hard to continuously pump blood out of the brain. Obviously, when the body is right side up, gravity does the work so the heart doesn't have to shoulder that load. Rescuers tied John with a rope connected to the series of pulleys. Everything was ready, and they pulled as hard as they could, but suddenly, without warning, one of the pulleys failed. Rescuers believed that the pulley system came loose at its anchor point in the cave wall, which contained a substantial amount of loose clay. The rope and pulley operation was no more. The rescuers had no other viable plans, and John was trapped. With no hope of rescue, and his heart having suffered of hours upon hours of strain due to his downward position, they could start to hear the nasally tone in his voice, which meant his time was coming to an end. John was pronounced dead of cardiac arrest shortly before midnight on the evening of November 25th, 2009. Rescuers had spent 27 hours trying to save John. They sadly couldn't recover the body either. However, his family thanked the rescuers for their help, even despite the horrible news. Sealed at the entrance was cement. John left inside, forever suspended in the tunnel. Nutty Putty Caves serves as a natural memorial and gravesite, so his family and friends, and stranger, can go mourn the sad tragic death of John Edward Jones. May he rest in peace.
Dim night tonight, and what's the worst thing I can't say? Things are better.